Now, can you share how you're integrating fertility in the hospital in Cleveland? What's going on there and how you're integrating?
Sure. Yeah, our fertility center has been really welcoming to acupuncture. I am mainly outpatient where they refer their patients to me and I work with them primarily as they're going through their fertility care at the fertility center. So through IUIs, through IVFs, through their first trimester typically. When I was in private practice, I would say I saw a lot of patients before they ever worked with reproductive endocrinology. So I didn't treat a lot of people that were concurrently receiving fertility treatments. But in the hospital setting, I'm probably 95% of my patients are also under IUI IVF care. I also go on site for acupuncture before and after embryo transfers right in the IVF procedure area. So they know me pretty well there by now. It's been very welcomed with open arms. We started a fertility support group this year through some philanthropy funding between my work and one of the nurse practitioners at the fertility center. And we have hopes to grow even further to keep supporting patients. It seems like, I think Ali Domar did a study on dropout rates for IVF patients, and she found even ones that had insurance coverage, about 45% of them drop out before they use up all their benefits because of stress. So the more we can help to support those patients and reduce stress, I think that's a big role we can play to help them get to their baby.
That's an important point. So in that study, I'm familiar with that research. I wasn't aware that it was Alice Domar's research, but I've come across that research where women
might have quoted it. I could be quoting wrong. It was either her or something she quoted.
but it has been published, and I've heard it in presentations. And basically what it showed is that couples or women would drop out of IVF, not because of financial stress, but because of emotional stress. And if they were able to do another IVF or 2 cycles, they would end up with a baby. So they were not having their babies due to stress versus the lack of access to IVF. And by keeping them in care, they were able to have babies. And that's a role of the integration too, because we're helping with the stress, plus we're helping improve their fertility potential by using our approach of acupuncture for increasing blood flow and regulating hormones and reducing the stress hormones. So wonderful.
It's a win-win because it's helping the patients get to their goal and in a better way, a happier way. And it's also beneficial to the fertility centers and the hospitals because it's upping patient retention, which is good for their bottom line.
And do you have they been watching your data? Like, are you seeing a difference? Because is everybody getting acupuncture in the IVF clinic? No, right?
No, it's the patient's choice because it is a cash pay service. So they're offered, I would say everybody is told about acupuncture services and offered them, but not everybody elects to do it. And sometimes I see patients at my office before a treatment or before IVF, like an embryo transfer. Sometimes I do go on site for them. It's their preference.
Right. But you're seeing them, are you seeing them before they cycle? Because if they get referred to you, are you seeing them before? Let's talk about the IVF. And the question I'm getting at is, are they seeing a difference with patients that are seeing you that are doing a series of treatments? Because I think the data is starting to show on transfer day only, some will benefit, some of the poor responders, but really dosaging seems to be the difference if you have a few treatments in that stim phase. And we also understand even before they start the stim phase, if you had some treatment. So I'm wondering with the patients you're seeing, a couple parts to this question. Do you see some of them before they start their stims? Are you seeing them during their stimulation in an IVF cycle? And besides just the transfer day? And are you seeing any differences in the patients that see you versus not?
I'll take the last one first. We are doing a retrospective records review currently to try and get some data that we could show on the patients that we treated versus patients that were not treated with acupuncture. I would say when I first started at the clinic about 5 years ago, it was a little hard to educate and get people to understand the value of acupuncture and where it falls. And I think with all that research that was out there, especially 5 years ago, the bulk of it was on day of embryo transfer. And so that's where they would put the focus. And so they would hand out my flyer and my card at the retrieval, and they were doing mostly fresh transfers at the time. So I would get urgent calls that I would like you at my transfer in 3 or 5 days. As time has gone on and the staff has gotten to know me better, I've been able to shift that flyer being handed out at the IVF consult or even at a meeting with a nurse or things like that. So I have been able to shift seeing patients more for several sessions before embryo transfer, which is my goal for them, is to have, at least if we can do 2 months worth of weekly treatments, like 8 treatments, that would be ideal, but we get in what we can. My goal is, though, to see them before that day of transfer. And I will see them on only the day of transfer if that's what they want, but I try and help educate that I can have more impact if I work with them before that. I do a lot of talking about nutrition and sleep and stress management and give them tools around that. We sometimes do supplements, sometimes Chinese herbal medicine. So I try and have a holistic approach in general and work with them before they get to that retrieval. Sometimes I see people after they've had a couple cycles that were failed and then they want to try something different. And I usually try and talk them into waiting at least 3 months before they do another IVF cycle at that point.
And I'm looking forward to your retrospective record review. We did one that was we looked at about 2 years of data for genetically screened embryos, frozen transfers, those that went through the acupuncture versus not at the local clinic. And the ones that had the acupuncture and laser acupuncture had a higher pregnancy rate, lower miscarriage rate. And these were all genetically screened. So they were looking at uterine receptivity, right? Mm-hmm. And then we looked at just treatments, if some had more treatments before just transfer day, and then that was even better pregnancy rate, lower miscarriage rate. That's awesome. It was just a general retrospective review. It was not a study, because we don't know if some of these patients that came to see us, because we're on site like you for the clinic, we're not sure if they had acupuncture elsewhere, right? Some of them may have had acupuncture. So it's not a study design, but it was just kind of like what you're doing. Let's have a look to see what we're observing, what we're noticing.
Yeah, what kind of impact have we had? So
yeah, that's good. Yeah. I'm so glad that we got to connect, Christine. So you're at the hospital there in Cleveland, Ohio, managing the acupuncture department. You guys have this great ward now for long haulers, people that have struggled with COVID. Right. Your group has done a study on in the emergency department for lowering stress and pain, which had a positive outcome. And then you're doing the integrated fertility. And like you said, you're getting a lot on transfer day, and it's just the way the world works. Eventually they'll catch on to get them in sooner, right, like during the stims, and then even before they start the stims, to get more benefit. But that's just how, you've been doing this for a while, so we see the progress. It's never where we want it to be today, but it's when you look back, it's really has improved the integration, right? Absolutely.
Yeah, building confidence and trust with the staff has been helpful. Yeah, definitely improving.
I think it's my last question for you. I'm wondering if you've seen any post-vaccine side effects. And I'm going to set this up. This is not a debate about should you get vaccine or not vaccine. Not what I'm talking about here. So if you thought that's where we're going, that's not where we're going. We had a course, 2 courses, one by David Jeweler and one by Daryl Wallace, palpation-based acupuncture for post-viral inflammatory conditions. And then they had one on the scalp, YNSA. And in their course, what I thought was interesting, and they were also very neutral about whether you get vaccine or not. It wasn't about that. It was about some people get COVID and end up having this inflammatory condition. Some people get viruses in general, not just COVID, and have this long hauler syndrome. Right. And some people get the vaccine. And there's a group of people that get the vaccine that end up with the same type of post-inflammatory conditions. And they said, it doesn't matter whether it was the vaccine or the virus. This is what's presenting, how you treat it. So I was wondering, in your clinic, are you seeing anybody that didn't have the COVID, but are having symptoms after their vaccinations? And are you able to help them with your acupuncture?
I haven't seen anything equivalent to, I would say, COVID long haul. I have seen tinnitus seems to come up for some people after the vaccine. And then I've had a couple of patients with dizziness. Some dizziness so bad that they went to the hospital with it because they were, couldn't walk and vomiting and things like that. Both of those things have resolved for people over time. I did attempt to support with acupuncture for the dizziness. I can't say acupuncture did the trick, or if it was just time, I'm not sure. But I think you're right. We're triggering and stimulating and irritating the immune system either way. And so sometimes, it's enough of a trigger to bother people. But I definitely haven't seen in my clinic any COVID vaccine reactions that have been equivalent to the level of disease that we're seeing with the COVID long haul.
Well, that's also reassuring.
Yeah.
Because
And
I
I
don't
think,
want COVID.
right.
And so I'm
Yeah.
using the vaccine to help prevent getting it,
Right.
or at least getting symptoms from it. So it's nice to know
I
that we
think for
do know
me,
some, yeah.
seeing the difference in severity between watching my patients closely after a vaccine versus watching what can happen after long haul and hearing some of these long haul cases, that worried me far more than, like, for my age group getting very sick at the time of COVID. I was more worried about the long haul possibility, especially with that percent being so high. It was concerning.
And what's your approach at the hospital? Are people coming once a week or twice a week? And ideally, how often, because I know it's a cash basis there, how often
Yeah.
would you want them, you think, to get this support? And I ask this question because we often treat based on time and money. It's the real world, right? So do
Yes.
they have time and the money? And I'm always wondering, if time and money were an issue, what would you want to be doing based on what you're seeing with the long haulers and how you understand the medicine and what you've seen clinically?
Yeah, I think ideally I would love to see people twice a week. In reality, it's typically a once a week scenario. My schedule is very full. Some people want to see me twice a week, and I wish I could, but they just can't get on my schedule twice a week. Same with some of the providers on our team. So if we can get them scheduled out twice a week, that would be the ideal. And like you said, sometimes the insurance covers it, but sometimes it's cash pay, and that could be prohibitive as well. We're lucky in the state of Ohio. I'm the president of the Ohio Acupuncture Association. We've advocated for Medicaid coverage in our state, which has helped a lot. And so we do have Medicaid coverage for things like migraines and low back pain and neck pain and post-surgical pain, things like that. So for some of the long haul patients that might be on Medicaid, they have accessibility as well.
I want to thank Christine Kaiser, our licensed acupuncture and manager there in the acupuncture department at Cleveland, Ohio, and her local hospital there, and treating long haulers. And they're doing lots of wonderful things. This was great to talk about how you're seeing the long haulers, what you're doing in the emergency department, and also in the fertility ward. It's really exciting to hear what you're doing, forward thinking, and making things easier for the rest of us in the future as well. So thank you, Christine, for all the work you've done.
No problem. We've got some good work to do in the world, so we got to stick together.
Thank you.